Welcome to the Overwhelm is Optional podcast, where each week we find ways to gently rebel against the nonsense that overwhelm and exhaustion are just the price you pay to have the life you want. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Overwhelm is Optional podcast, because overwhelm is definitely optional, and when you decide that it is, everything changes. A bit like when you decide to get varifocals. Haha. So right now I'm recording this obviously before Christmas, because I'm taking my lovely winter retreat over Christmas, and I'm at present battling with varifocals. So at 54, I think I've done pretty well avoiding them, or maybe that's not a good thing at all. Maybe I should have got them ages ago. Anyway, I've got varifocals and it's really weird. It's just everything looks different. It's really hard to get. I'm finding it really difficult to get used to them, but it's teaching me this, that the attitude that I have towards adjusting to them matters, and that's it really. I know that they're really good lenses because I invested in really good lenses, and I went to a really good optician and I got really good help and advice. I can take them back. Everything's safe, everything's good. So I've done the best I can do. But I also know that how I approach them is going to make all the difference. And although the optician I went to was very, very good at saying, yeah, it can take a while, but, you know, the lenses are much better than they used to be, blah, blah, blah. So I did go in with the positive, open-minded attitude to them. But by the end of the first evening, and I only got them late morning, I had nausea, I was dizzy, I was really struggling. And on top of that, I was really upset about it. And it's the upset about it that was causing a lot of the struggle, because I wanted it to be worth it. I wanted it to be worth the time, effort, money, decision, everything. I just wanted to be able to see clearly. And I guess it's linked emotionally to aging and all that kind of stuff. But it was the emotional reaction, which was really interesting. So I didn't feel very well when I went to bed. I actually had nausea and took quite a long time to go to sleep. And I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting to have some adjustment issues, but not to feel physically ill and to be this upset about it. So the next day I was in tears, and I put, even though you're not supposed to, I put some old glasses on because I was just done. I just felt really ill, and I just thought, oh, great. So I'm one of the minority of people who can't adjust to varifocals. I'm just too sensitive to it. Now that's a label, and that's a way of looking at the process of adjusting to them. And then I calmed down a bit, because once I'd acknowledged how I felt, so I noticed how I felt, I noticed how upset I was, I noticed how much harder I was finding it than I thought I would. I just noticed all of it. And then I decided that before I drove furiously to the opticians to demand, and I didn't need to be furious or demand, because they're there waiting to pop my old lenses back in. It's easy. It's not actually a big deal. And so the whole thing was actually fine, but I didn't feel fine about it. So I just thought, right, I'll Google to see if anybody else has gone through this normalizes it. And if they can tell me it's worth it, maybe it will be worth it. Maybe I'm not that unusual and sensitive about it. Maybe in some way I'm making a bigger deal than I need to, and this is part of the adjustment process. So I think part of my problem is that as somebody with a psychology degree, I know that the eyes don't see, they construct with the brain. So I know what's going on. I don't think that's helpful in this case, because I'm judging it and I'm looking at different part. I'm trying to work out, I'm doing it like a scientist. I'm trying to work out which part of the lens should do this. What's wrong? Is it the prescription? Is it me? What's gone wrong? And that's unhelpful. So I was really getting stuck in my head. So I just allowed everything to settle. And then I Googled other people's experiences, and I came across an incredibly helpful video from a very kind optician in Durham. Sorry, I can't remember their name. But if you are having the same issue, or if you live in Durham, in the north of the UK, beautiful place, this optician was so nice. And he'd done this whole video about how what I was going through was normal. And immediately I felt better, because he said, I promise you it will be worth it. And that was fascinating to me because that immediately shifted everything. And he also said things like, it can be difficult for the brain in particular to adjust to the reading part of the lens. So it's not that the reading part of the lens is wrong, it's that the brain just takes longer to adjust to that part. So that to me is absolutely fascinating. And once I knew that, I just put the lenses back on. I stopped feeling sorry for myself, and I just thought, right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to give it a proper go. He said 2 weeks is the magic time, but that's the other side of Christmas. And I guess part of me is like, oh, but for Christmas everything has to be perfect. I have to be able to see. I certainly don't want nausea. But anyway, I've given myself more time, or I've given and the lenses more time, and the whole idea more time. And I've just let go of that rigidity and that anxiety and that panic of getting stuck in my head. And then what's happened is not only have a lot of, I still can't see particularly brilliantly, but I'm really going for it. But I don't have nausea anymore. And if I'm careful, I don't feel dizzy. So if I ignore the edges of the lenses. Anyway, you don't want to know about that. My point is this. So what this has taught me is that whole thing of how we look at something matters. Now, if you match that with the whole idea that the eyes don't see, they construct. So you're constructing your reality all the time, just because that's a major cognitive shortcut, right? If you had to see and look at everything all the time, that would take longer than mainly doing it from memory and only focusing on certain things. This is why when you walk into a room that you know, it's just more relaxing than walking into a room that you don't know. But if something's moved in a room, you will notice that first. So this is just saving energy, right? This is just cognitive shortcuts. There's no need for the eyes to be processing everything in the environment visually at once. That's a lot of work compared to just memorizing most of it and then noticing the things that have changed. That's really super fast processing. So that in itself is interesting, because we can use that to say, okay, so if I'm constructing my reality and noticing different things, if I choose to notice different things, that's going to change my experience of reality. And this is related to what I teach about attention and how the mind has a negative bias, and you can change that bias. So last week I talked a lot about unexpectedly lovely things being a really helpful and rebellious tool for changing how you look at things. So this is all linked to my varifocal experience at the moment. And another thing was it's taking me a while to adjust. But once I was told it would be worth it, it just became easier, and my eyes started adjusting, or my brain started adjusting faster. So my experience changed. And this really got me thinking about what I do as a coach and what a good coach would do for you, or does do for you, or what good coaches do in the world. We hold the vision for our client that they can't see. So in a similar way that the optician said, I promise you in 2 weeks' time, that tends to be the magic spot that you will be able to see clearly and you will never look back. And that's what happens when I take on a new client. It can be a huge adjustment. They want a big thing. In general, they want their life back from constant overwhelm, stress, exhaustion, and they want to start doing the things that they've been preparing to do for ages and aren't getting round to because they're too busy coping, managing, just about getting through. And that's a big, brave thing to do. And you can do it on your own. Of course you can. You can coach yourself. You're amazing. Everybody's amazing. I love people. Humans are amazing. We have remarkable ability to do whatever we want to do once we set our mind to it. But what I love about coaching is the coach holds that vision for you and then guides you towards it and keeps you on track until you get there. So it's just easier and faster. I had a quote about this from Michael Neal, who wrote Super Coach. So Michael Neal defines coaching. I don't know if it's his definition. He just said it's the best definition he has of it. Coaching is a way to get more out of yourself than you can get on your own. a way to get more out of yourself than you can get on your own. Now that sounds super simple, doesn't it? It doesn't sound like very much in lots of ways. More out of yourself than you can get on your own, more out of your life than you can get on your own. It's such a profound thing, actually. It sounds simple, but it's such a big deal. So whenever I've had really good coaching, it's just magical. It really is difficult to explain unless you've experienced it. It's the change of perspective and then holding that perspective until you align with it, which is what's going on with my eyesight at the moment. So I'm now in the process of believing that varifocals are awesome, particularly nowadays because of the technology and how they can graduate the lens, and that this will make my life so much better because I will be able to see much more clearly and not have the constant ridiculous thing that was going on before with taking glasses on and off. And also I was getting headaches while working, and that can't happen, right? Because my work matters to me. So I just wanted to start with that because this is really related to how to have an unexpectedly lovely 2023. Because it starts with what you believe is possible for you. And if you don't believe that what you really want is possible for you, as we talked about in the episode before Christmas, episode 148, how to find the courage to identify or decide or admit what you really want. If you don't really think you can have what you want, it can be really hard to have the courage to admit what you want. But if you decide, so if you did go through that episode with me and just gently whisper to yourself, yeah, actually I really do want this thing, then you're way ahead of the game. Because even if you're still in self-doubt and you're still thinking, yeah, I would really like that, but I think it's going to be really hard, but at least you can see it, you can start to see it. And that's what this episode is about. So I just want to recap on what we've done in December, because there were 2 episodes leading up to this, so it's kind of a 3-part review and dream and plan moving from 2022 to 2023, but each episode is designed to stand alone, because what I don't want is you hearing me now going, oh, I better go back and listen to those other episodes. Yes, you could do, but you could also just stay here right now and everything would be okay. I never, ever, ever want to add things to your must-do list, because the whole point of this podcast is to take the pressure off, is to remove overwhelm, not add to it. So you have a choice. You could go back and do the 2 episodes that were linked to this. Episode 147 was about reviewing 2022, and episode 148 was about dreaming about what you really want, finding the courage to admit that just to yourself quietly. And then I did a Christmas episode in between for you. And now here we are. And if this was a goal setting review, this would be the goal setting episode. But we're going to do it differently. Of course, we're going to do it powerfully, but gently. We're going to do it the gentle rebel way. So we're going to turn it upside down, actually. Woohoo! So are you ready? How to have an unexpectedly lovely 2023. Number 1, start where you are. That was episode 147. So you review 2022. You can do that now. So you can just really notice where you are in your life. So often we try and start from where we think we ought to be, and then we're beating ourselves up. I should be further ahead. Why has this not happened? What's wrong with me? If I wasn't such a procrastinator, blah, 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 blah. So just noticing where you are and how you feel about it, and this takes courage as well, just saying, well, actually I'm not there, this is where I am. And sometimes the opposite happens, where we're much further ahead than we realise. There's been lots of really good stuff happen that needs celebrating, but we haven't celebrated them because we're on to the what's next. So just starting where you are, noticing in general, how do you feel about your year? In general, how do you feel about where you are in your life? And just starting, oh, well, this is where I am. You can only start from where you are. Sounds simple, but it's not where most of us start, because it can be difficult to see that. So that's why it can be really helpful to talk to somebody else or messy journal it out so you can get some clarity. Secondly, just tune in and listen. So this was episode 148, the whole really getting out of your head into your body, and particularly into the heart, because the heart longs for things. The heart has these huge passionate desires for things. So being able to have the courage to just listen to that and then not necessarily do anything about it. So it's up to you what you do with that. You could decide, I want to act on all of those things, or you could just notice them. I always go the easiest, gentlest way. So just noticing, oh, yes, I would really like that. Oh, I wonder if I could make that happen. And when we introduce curiosity into our noticing, it's really helpful because it just makes it lighter. I really want that, but that's going to be really hard work. And I'm going to get super overwhelmed if I do that, so I can't have it. Versus, I'd really like that. I wonder if there's a way to cheat my way there and make it really easy and fun. Curiosity and then playfulness. So this is the gentle rebel's way of looking at what we really want. And I was thinking about this morning, just before I recorded this, when I was doing my imagining and celebrating just for a few minutes. And I was thinking about how what I really wanted was to not go out to work from home. And I didn't realise how much I really wanted this. It wasn't on purpose that I ended up working from home. A lot of it was to do with lockdown shifting things, like for a lot of people. And then I just realised how much I absolutely love it and how powerful it is being able to use all the technology and work from this space here. And then I've been able to reflect back to when I was younger and having to go to school and my mum getting to stay at home, and me think deep down, I was like, I just want to stay at home. And then everything changed. So for my generation, what do you want to do when you grow up? Well, pretty much we were expected to be housewives. I mean, not completely. We were also expected to have jobs, but careers was a different thing. So I was one of the first in my family to go to university. Things shifted a lot for women in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s time. And they've shifted again, right? And now you're just expected to go out to work. You're expected, everything's double income, and things have shifted again. But really tuning into that little girl who really didn't want to go to school and wanted to grow up and be at home. I also did want a job, which is interesting. But I also wanted to be at home, and just admitting that and noticing that and noticing that need to have a choice, I think, and I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this. It doesn't really matter. The point is I can identify an emotional memory of wanting to stay at home that I hadn't recognised before, that I hadn't admitted to, because I guess part of me thought, well, that's lazy, it's not acceptable, you can't do that, you need to make money, you have to go out to work. And anyway, women have fought for years the right to have a career, and you're bright and you should be out there doing things in the world, having an impact on the world, and it's lazy to stay at home. There's a whole load of emotional stuff. But for somebody who was between kind of generations about being a housewife and having a career, not admitting that there's a mixture of feelings there was unhelpful. And don't get me wrong, I loved going out to work, lots about it, and I loved having a career. But just noticing for me what's going on has been really helpful. So for you, are there some like underlying things where you're thinking, yeah, I'd really like to do that? Because a lot of the time we're pushing ourselves in a direction where we think we ought to go because we think that's the expectations of those around us. I mean, I noticed for years that I didn't like the question, what do you do? Because in the UK in particular, I think we just want to know what people do for work, which is, I love it when people are rebellious and don't answer my question, because I don't mean to ask the question as in, what do you do for work? I don't know. We need better questions, don't we? What's your favourite thing to do? Do you love Monday mornings? I don't know. Write and tell me, what's a better question than what do you do as a way to connect with somebody? Because it's just annoying. By the way, if you can hear snoring, my two cavaliers, Nutmeg and Rosie, are pretty keen on snoring today. So just enjoy and maybe chill out and have a snore too. So, step 1, start where you are. Step 2, tune in to listen to what you really want. It takes courage. Be kind, be gentle, whisper rather than shout to yourself, because it's easier. And then we can get into planning. So if we want an unexpectedly lovely 2023, we need to plan for it, as in focus on it, as in expect it, as in imagine that it could possibly happen. So you have to decide what that is for you. And part of that comes out of identifying with your heart what you really long for and what your body really needs, and then what would satisfy and fulfill you, mental exertion. So you get to decide that, but you don't have to make all of it happen. And the problem with very linear goal setting is if things don't go in that controlled step-by-step way, it always feels like a disaster. And it's also quite restrictive, because I would argue that you can't imagine as much as is possible for you. So you can have more than you think you can have, in other words. And that often when we pick a goal, we're compromising. So I will do that course so I can do that, because that will give me that amount of money and that amount of time and that kind of satisfaction, and it will be a stepping stone to that. And while some of those things might be true, or all of them might be true, that doesn't mean there's not an easier way to get the fulfillment and the time freedom and money freedom that you want. There might be another way, and so that you can't yet see, because we can't know. I remember being in so-called careers lessons when I was at high school. It basically went like this: what do you want to do when you grow up? What do you want to do when you leave school? Well, at that point in my life, I didn't really understand the question. So I used to reply with the word physiotherapist and then get told that's not how you spell it, which is quite funny. I didn't really know what the choices were. How could I? You grow up with, you can be a doctor, nurse, fireman, postman, shopkeeper, teacher, policeman. Oh dear. And there's a million things we can do, and most of them are invisible. And also, with the world changing so quickly, the things that are possible aren't yet even available. So a lot of what's possible is invisible, and that's why we're going to turn things upside down, and we're going to do reverse planning. So we're going to start with, as Stephen Covey says, begin with the end in mind, but not the end goal completed. We're going to begin with how you would feel. So you can take any of your generalized or very specific, any of your present, what's coming up that you'd really like. How would that make you feel? And from there, you can focus on that instead of just the goal. And then that opens up many ways that can happen. And it also means that if you don't achieve that feeling state in that one way, you haven't failed. You've just done it a different way. It's just more fun because there's invisible ways of doing things. But we're always aiming for the most you way of doing anything. So really, to have an unexpectedly lovely 2023, it needs to be in the most you way possible. So my 2023, in fact, what did I come up with this morning? 2023 is all about me, or something like that. That sounds really childish now. Anyway, 2023 is all about me. 2023 is all about you, but you have to say it so it rhymes, because obviously you doesn't rhyme with 3, but me does. So you can just stomp around like a playful toddler in your head going, 2023 is all about me. Da, 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 da. Anyway, so that's what we're aiming for. It needs to be all about you. And yes, lots of resistance could come up about, well, that's selfish, that's childish. That's okay. Just notice that too. So this is what we're going to do. Begin with the end in mind. How do you want to feel? And then I'm going to mention 5 things that I want to feel, that I know my clients want to feel. But I'll have missed some bits out and I probably won't have labelled them correctly, so that you might have a different take on it. That's okay. Just notice. So the first one is safety. That feeling like you're wrapped in a warm, comfortable blanket. You are safe. Like if you did nothing today, everything would still be okay. The world doesn't keep turning because you're pushing it. You get to be yourself and feel safe. That's a big one. Safety and security. Next one is ease. Ease for me is the opposite of overwhelm. That's when I can think clearly. I have time and space before I act. So I'm not, just swatting flies on my to-do list. I'm actually making decisions and focusing on what's important to me. I feel at home in my life, at home in myself. Things are set up to support me in the best way possible, in the way that I work and think and play and relax best. Then I've got freedom. Freedom's a big value of mine. The freedom to choose, the freedom to be, the freedom to decide how I want to move through my day, how I want to live my life, how I want to think about something, how and when I want to talk about something. So freedom's a big one for me. And obviously money is very related to freedom in this day and age. So for me, that means welcoming in more and more money, because money's a good thing. The more good people have money, the better. And there is plenty of money. It's just going in interesting directions, or our attention is drawn to the directions money is flowing that make us anxious. But there is plenty of money, and there is plenty of money in the hands of good people. And there are plenty of ways these days for us all to create more money, welcome more money into our lives. And money is a force for good. We can do so much good with it. So welcoming in more money, so that we can have more freedom, more choice, do more good, have more fun. Goodness me, when do we get to grow up and have more fun? Now, you're a child and you're just waiting, aren't you? You've got to go to bed early. Can't do that. When I grow up, I'm going to be free to choose what I want to do. When does that happen? When you decide. In 2023, it's all about me. Okay, the next one I've got is loved. Now, being in relationships where you are loved comes primarily from loving ourselves first, because when we love ourselves first, we then expect other people to treat us with that kind of respect and value. So, and sometimes I know, looking back at my own life, there has been love around me that I haven't been able to feel or see because I haven't felt worthy of it in some way. I obviously didn't know this at the time, or I would have gone, oh, that's interesting, I need to work on that. No, this is the thing. Lots of good stuff is invisible. There is love all around us. There is money all around us. There's freedom. There is choice. There is play. There is just, yummy stuff. And gently rebelling and noticing that more and more allows more and more of that to come into our lives. So the next one I've got is playful. I want to feel playful. I have a tendency to get serious, so I want to feel more and more playful, introducing more and more playfulness. This came up in group coaching for Get Your Life Back this month. Being more playful. Play. How can I play more and more and more? And a lot of that is an attitude rather than an activity, but it can be both, right? So for me, one of the things that I just put in every year is mini adventures, a commitment to more mini adventures. What might those adventures look like? So for me, they tend to be outdoorsy things like walking, but not hiking in a serious fashion, more kind of like a poodle, because it's more playful. And then I get to notice things, because I don't know about you, but if I'm walking through woodland, then sometimes even walking feels too fast because there's so much to notice. So I like to poodle rather than march. So there again, it's not the activity, it's how I'm doing it. It's the attitude I'm bringing to it. How do I want to feel? I don't want to feel exhausted after my walk. I want to feel pleasantly tired, but refreshed and just full of having time to either talk to the person I'm with or absorb the beauty around me and just clear my head, or whatever it is I want. And then kayaking comes up for me. There's lots of things like that. So playfulness is a really important one. And then I've realized there's one that I didn't put down that I wish to add, and that's fulfillment. So this is a really big one for me and my clients, and I'm sure it is for you too. We want to do a really good job at work, and it is the sometimes the clash between wanting to do a really good job at work and not let anyone down, have high standards, keep our high standards, but not exhaust ourselves. So this need to not disappoint other people, but it's more than that. It's the fulfillment of doing a job really well. And wouldn't it be wonderful if everybody had that commitment? Because if everybody was doing a job really well, then things would be made to last. Services would be on time, of high quality, they would deliver as promised. And the thing is, I work with people who all have these high standards, but around us lots of people don't. And because other people don't, and that has affected us, we're really reluctant to put ourselves first and risk doing a worse job and being like some of the people who have let us down in the past, or have slopey shouldered their work onto us and caused exhaustion, that kind of thing. So how can we have fulfillment? How can you, not we, you don't need to solve the whole everybody. How can you have more fulfillment in your work? What would that look like? And how can you have that without adding to your overwhelm? Without adding to your pressure, your to-do list, without letting yourself down, without overworking your body so that you get sick or achy. So fulfillment's really, really important, isn't it? How can we have an impact on the world which is for good? How can we make people's days? I really like that idea. So instead of trying to change the world, how can you make somebody's day? Because that's where it starts, right? You make somebody feel good by smiling at them or giving them really good service, and then that ripples out because they feel good, and then they feel appreciated and they feel loved, and it just ripples out and out and out. So there really is a lot that we can do in a really small way, just by being nicer to ourselves, actually. Anyway, so that's what I've got. So you decide what you want. How do you want to feel? So you can reverse engineer it from the things that came up. Oh, I'd really like this. I'd really like to be doing this, more of this. Work out what it is that would give you, the feeling it would give you, because that allows, if you then focus on the feeling, it allows for other ways to reach that feeling. So then there'll be delightful, unexpectedly lovely surprises and opportunities pop up on the way, because you're not just single-mindedly focused. Like with these new varifocals, if I only focus through one part of the lens, then I can just see that narrows my vision. So the point of varifocals, oh, here we go, more metaphor of my varifocal issue this week, is that I can see everywhere. I don't need to swap glasses. So it's not just such a big deal. So it's widening my vision eventually, she says, hopefully. So what comes to mind for you? And then a really nice thing to do is two things, forward and backwards, or past and future. What memories can you access to feel that way now? So if you want to feel safety, when did you most feel safe? If you want to feel loved, when did you most feel loved? If you want to feel fulfillment, what was the most fulfilling time in your life? Or just some little times. When did you feel playful? You know, when you're laughing and just not taking life so seriously. So identifying memories that are really good and rehearsing them is known to be really good for us, because we just get more out of them, and then we're retraining our mind to notice that we already have had really good points in our life. So the rehearsal of memories that bring in the feeling states that you want more of, really helpful tool. So if you had a great holiday and you've forgotten about it because you came back and then loads of stuff happened and you've just forgotten about it, you can revisit those memories and you can relive that holiday, and you can have more, you can get more and more out of that holiday. How cool is that? And this is what they use in all sorts of performance coaching with things like athletes, or anybody who's a top performer is using this kind of thing, I believe. So that because the brain doesn't know the difference between reality and imaginary, and you know this because you can feel it in your body, right? So if you imagine lying on a beach, if you know, God, I love being all nice and warm in the sun. So if you're really cold and you just imagine lying on a beach and being really warm, you can feel the warmth, right? So it actually affects your body, and that's really cool. So that's a great one to use. And secondly, imagine feeling that way now, as in go into the future. Imagine you've already got the client, the promotion, the holiday, whatever it is, you're kayaking down a river in the summer, whatever your mini adventure is. Imagine doing it in advance. So you've got the rehearsing old memories and then imagining the future as you want it to be. And that also brings in it as if it's already happened, and it can be really good for you. So we have a choice, and it's really important to understand how powerful your attention is, because when you place your attention on what you want, you get more of it. We get more of what we focus on. And the problem is obviously that all around us there's lots of negative stuff. So one of the things I've been thinking about doing for a while actually is sharing good news with you, because there's so much bad news, and I've looked for good news and it's not that easy. Even if you go to so-called good news sites, they're not always that, I don't always find them that uplifting actually. But deliberately searching for the opposite of what is causing fear for you in the news is really helpful, I have found. Also asking the question, is it nourishing? So if you're reading something and it's inducing fear and anxiety, do you need to read it? And if you're then like, well, yes, I ought to read the news, do you need to read the news? Is it the news? Because as I've said previously and did a whole episode about this, I think it was last year, it's not the news. It's stuff that sells. And do you need to know all of it? In the years I've gone by previously, pre-pandemic, without reading any news, anything important always filters through, and the rest of it is on a cycle. You can pretty much predict the next disaster that's going to come up, because it's just, I don't know, it's just like they just repeat this stuff on cycles of doom. And they don't report on everything. So they report on the wars and disasters in some places, but completely ignore them in others. So it's not like it's even a fair misery level playing field. So yeah, and the point is that how you attend to things and what you feed your mind with affects your life. So it matters very, very much actually, and it's worth really valuing your attention, because this is your life. And where you place your attention is quite literally your experience of life. So whether to read the news or not is actually a bigger decision than maybe we're aware of. And I have really been sucked back into the fear and doom cycle during the last few years, just because I was like, what is going on? I just couldn't make sense of it. And now I've really come out of the other side and have reiterated my commitment to being much more careful with what I read, what I absorb, any videos I watch, etc. And it's great. So that's when freedom comes back, and headspace, and not having my nervous system switched into fear as often. Another thing for me is marketing messaging. So as somebody who is a business owner, I get masses and masses of stuff coming at me all the time. And I've really realised how that has fed into imposter syndrome, self-doubt, fear, anxiety. And now I'm just like, oh, shut up. Stop telling me that this is the only way to do business. It's not. I've tried it, didn't like it. So a big thing for me in 2023 is to really control that and choose myself first before reading anything. What about you? What works for you? So noticing the feeling states you're inducing now on purpose by rehearsing memories and imagining future successes, and also inducing accidentally by distraction and overwhelm, because it's everywhere, distraction and overwhelm. It's how lots of people make money, and not in a particularly ethical way, I would argue. The misuse of psychology, how sad is that? So you've got this idea now of what you want, what would make 2023 unexpectedly lovely for you. Now, unexpectedly lovely means that you're always searching for the unexpectedly lovely. You're deliberately focusing on the good and the better than good and the unexpected, and you're open to surprises, you're open to doing things in a different way. You have this playful, fun attitude. You know that what you really want, this might not be what you want, but in general, we want to feel loved, safe, fulfilled, that kind of thing. So just playing with that and seeing what comes up for you. And then how to make that happen. Well, the gentle rebel way is not by making it happen. It's not by pushing. It's not by step-by-step linear path to achievement. Now, there are some things in our our life that require a linear path, right? Like, so when I finished my psychology degree in 2006, it required a lot of planning because I did a double year. I just did it in a stupid way. Obviously, that was pre my gentle rebellion days because I made myself quite ill doing it that way. So instead of pushing, shifting your calendar around so that you make yourself ill like I did, what's a different way of doing it? So allowing. So if we go back to there's all sorts of good stuff around you, opportunities, more playfulness, more fun. There's all sorts of love, money, opportunities, energy available to you that you can't see always, because we're always expanding into seeing more and more for ourselves. Then actually you don't need to push. You can't push your way to that. You can't push your way to ease or playfulness. It's a allowing, it's a letting go. It's a just deciding, yeah, I'm not available for pressure and overwhelm. I want to do things differently. So I'm just going to change my focus and look for ways to do it differently. Look for the unexpectedly lovely. Change your focus. Focus on what you want and how you want to feel rather than the end strict linear result. And doing so with an attitude of self-love and self-acceptance. This is who I am. This is where I am in my life at the moment. And this is what I want. Rather than, if I was other than I am, if I was better at, if I had read that, if I had finished that, if I had this qualification, if I had this amount of money, if I had this, if I was other than I am, if things were other than they are, then instead, this is just how things are. And from this point, I want to feel lighter. So introducing curiosity. I was curious that this is how I feel about my life. How can I see it differently? Or how can I just be more accepting of that? And how can I be more playful? So a lightness comes from playfulness and acceptance. This is how things are, but I'm going to play anyway. I'm going to be happy anyway. I'm going to love myself anyway. This is how things are for me. And using curiosity, a combination of curiosity about how things are and playfulness changes everything and allows you to gently rebel and do things your way. So I hope that's been a really helpful episode for you. I'd love to know what you have planned for 2023 in terms of what you want and what attitude you're going to bring onto that, and whether you're going to be gently rebelling along with the other listeners and my clients. If you'd like some support, then do get in touch. You can use the show notes below. And there's two things you can do. One is to book a curiosity call and just enjoy spending time with me talking about what you want and whether you want support with that, and to come and work with me and what that would look like for you. And the other one is to book a Break Through the Overwhelm session, where you pay for a one-off session but with support either side of that, so that you can break through the overwhelm and get really clear on what it is you want for whatever issue. So for this time of year, it would be really, really great to, book one in January and just get really clear on what it is you want for the year. So if either of those are of interest to you, either go to my website or just click both links are below in the show notes. I'd love to hear from you. Looking forward to connecting with you. Okay, wishing you the most unexpectedly lovely 2023. May it be filled with everything that you want to feel and achieve and be. And may it be a year which is all about you, because you matter. How you are in the world matters. Thank you so much for being part of this podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please do take a little moment of your time to share it, like it, etc., to help other people find it. And if you'd like to know more about my work, please go to www.heidimark.co.uk.